Hello everybody, welcome to Setting the Scene. I'm your host as always, David. And in this board build video, I'm going to build the board for a 1200 point game between Oliver and I. He's got militia, but the militia are superb. They almost look like modern day British forces, but 20 years in the future sort of thing. So really interesting list. And he's facing off my Thalax. I've got 20 Thalax and a Magos. That is it. But don't forget, the Thalax are toughness 5 with 3 wounds, 4 up armor, 6 up feel no pain. So they are quite tough. And I've taken no special equipment, no upgrades other than heavy chain blades on the Thalax. And so it's really going to be a fight. Massed infantry, which we all know the Thalax can't deal with because they've got high strength but single shot weaponry, no photon thrusters, no plasma fusiles, no IRAD cleansers, nothing, no photon thruster. So it's going to be a really interesting game. And obviously I filmed this prior to the game going out, so I have no idea how the game's gone. All I know is it will look good. That's about it. So if you've watched the game, you know the board that I've built. So I don't know what I've built, but I had an idea in my mind that I wanted to build a board where it's like a valley or a canyon almost, quite a shallow one, probably the height of Contempt or something like that because of the rocks that I've got. And I kind of wanted it to be like an entrance into a much larger complex, which is off the board, miles away. But you've got these 2 kind of bastions, and then it kind of goes in there. So the top will be quite open, completely open, really, and so will the other side, apart from these 2 bastions, which I will offset. I won't have them next to each other. I have them kind of offset, and then it doesn't matter which deployment we make, whether we play Hammer and Anvil, Dawn of War, Shatter Strike, Clash of the Line, whatever, it doesn't matter because the map is so generic and so symmetrical. As symmetrical as I can get it, because obviously the rocks, I haven't got 2 identical rocks, but I'm going to try and make it snake a little bit rather than just having one long line, which will be really interesting for the game. And there'll be those 2 bastions, maybe, and then there'll be some other stuff, but I'm going to try and get a bit of height and drama with the rocks and maybe prop one up against, so just so we've got that line of sight. So if we are playing Clash of the Line or Hammer Anvil, you've still got cover, or Dawn of War even. So I'm not 100% sure how this is going to go. I've got an idea in my head. I think I'm just going to speed up the next 40 minutes because it's literally just going to be me moving rocks around to a position I'm happy. Then I'm going to pour a ton of aggregate on, put the 2 bastions on, finish. So the board will be really simple, and I've really enjoyed the simple board builds over the last sort of month or so, buying more stone from the garden centre and then just putting some aggregate down with some loose rocks and some Games Workshop full draw terrain. It looks really great. And one of the great things about this board, hopefully, with using all the natural rock and everything else, is because Oliver's army looks quite modern and doesn't look quite fantastical like Mechanicum or Space Marines, because if you think about it in the realms of modern day comparison, they're quite fantastical, aren't they? These big massive robots with lots of technology, and Space Marines are superhumans and all that sort of jazz, whereas Oliver's army, it just looks like, as I said earlier, a modern day British forces, but 20 years in the future. They've got a little bit more tech, and they've got these bipedal things, and it looks really cool. So and the way his bases and my bases are, it's quite deserty, and I think the whole thing will just tie together really well. Anyway, I'm going to play with some rocks. Right. I know it looks like I've just thrown a load of rocks on the board, and I guess it kind of does. But what you have got is you've got various sort of roads, or what I deem to look like roads, coming out of here. It wasn't quite the valley that I wanted to create. And thinking about it now, it's probably not possible actually. So what I've gone for, I've kind of gone for a Zone Mortalis-esque style board with kind of various routes through the board. And, you know, again, depending on your deployment, there is so much cover on this board. I'm still going to put a bastion on top of here, I think. I really wanted one kind of the other side of the board. I might move some of these rocks around. So I might have one here and maybe one here. I think that would work quite well. I need to check the dimensions of the base on the bastion. But I think it works really well. And I think for the Mechanicum in particular, you know, they've got that really great thrust move, which will really help them to kind of, you know, it's like paying 40k Tau, isn't it? Seventh, I've only got a reference of 7th edition, so you know I'm 2 editions behind, but you know, they kind of got outshot and then kind of fled back, and that's the sort of tactics that when you play an army comprised wholly of Thalax, and that's my 3k list, you have to put that to your advantage. So I see this as, you know, the Mechanicum are taking advantage of the terrain a little bit, and they're popping and popping out, whereas the militia have got numbers. So I think on the day I won't be able to kill all of the militia. There's just no way that's going to happen, even in a 6-7 turn game. There's no way we can do it because we've got 20 shots a turn. You know, so 20 shots, half will hit, half will, well, more than half will wound because your strength's 7. So you're down to 10 shots. You'll probably get 7 wounds. And I think in the army there's about 40 or 50, maybe 60 models. So, you know, you're not going to shoot them to death. So so it forces me to play really, really tactically to try and win the mission on the objective, and that will absolutely be my plan. Whereas the militia, I know Oliver got so much AP4 in his army, it's unbelievable. I think there's like 8 heavy bolters in the army, which will decimate my little squads of 4. So it's going to be a really interesting game. I'm going to have to work really, really hard to kind of to make it work, and I've got to use the terrain to my advantage. So we might come up with a scenario where, you know, the militia are filtering through this area and they've been ambushed by the Mechanicum. You know, we'll work something out, I'm sure. Anyway, I think the rock formations are where they need to be. I'm going to get a couple of bastions and just move them around the board to see what fits. Right, I'm back with some bastions. Not good. Not bad. I don't know if it works, if I'm honest with you. I did like the idea of a bastion. I like the idea of a bastion because it signifies that the militia are on their way back to base, and you know, one of these bastions is kind of on the outskirts. So you know, if they are being pursued, they can fall back to a bastion, take up a defensive position, fight off the attack, and then move back into the main compound or call for reinforcements from the compound. So I really like that idea of having a bastion on the board. Having said all that and creating a lovely story surrounding having the bastions, I don't think they work. I think this game is all about, I was going to say about the models and the look of it, but maybe it does need a little something. I can't decide. I'm going to have a good think and we'll see what the decision is. Okay, as you saw, I had to move a load of rocks around. The reason why I did that was because the last ball build I built with the sort of the Tiberium spike, we're calling it, it was at an angle and it really, really bugged me. And I didn't really notice it until sort of maybe an hour into the game, which we filmed. And it really bugged me because, you know, things aren't built Leaning Tower of Pisa style in the 30k universe. They're flat and they're upright and they're straight. So I had to move the bastions to make sure I got level and true building. So that's why I moved them in the end. Definitely makes a difference, I think. I do like the 2 bastions. I really like them a lot. I might still level on it ever so slightly with some rock, and then I'll just put some aggregate on it. You'll never see it, so that's fine. It does need leveling out slightly. You know, these are the hazards working with rock and stone and stuff. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to dump a load of aggregate onto this board, and then I'm going to put some rocks, the little chippings around there, and then maybe a couple of containers, because I obviously love containers, and then that is the board build finished. Right, that was a lot of flattening about. That was a lot of flattening out and moving. I did move the bastion. I think in an ideal world there'd be 3. I quite like that, but and I do like that. But I think it just felt it was missing something. So I've put the bastion this way. I'm going to put the door facing inwards as well, or backwards in this case, because that's where the base is, I guess. Same again for that one, I think. So that is that, really. The next thing I'll get is the stone chips, and we're just going to add that around, and this really brings out the rest of the board. That's it. I think I'm finished. I am going to resist the urge to not add any crates. That might change tomorrow morning when I wake up and go, it's missing crates. But that's it. I've just tried to blend some of the grey slate into the rest of the board, just so it doesn't stand out too much, because, you know, this is to simulate sand and stuff, and it would blow around. And we know all that because I talk about it all the time. That is the board build finished. I think it's a very dynamic board. I think it's going to be really interesting once we get into the guts of it and how terrain is used. I always ask my opponents on the morning of filming if they're happy with the board, and if they're not, I can move it around a little bit, or I can add some more terrain features in there to just kind of help. Because I think when people play at clubs, they either play with too much terrain or too little. And I try to strike that balance between the two. One final thing, I have so many questions after I build a board like this. You go, oh, it's really messy, how do you tidy up and all that jazz. And I have done a breakdown video that's very similar. Games Workshop scenery, rocks and aggregate, or aquarium aggregate is what it is. And the easiest answer to that is once the game is finished, I pull all the Games Workshop terrain off, put it on a shelf, put it in a box, take the rocks off, and I literally have a dustpan and bucket, and I just sweep all of the aggregate, and then I've got a little sieve which I've made, which I'll get for you. There we go, magically appeared in my hand. It's just a container from, I think it was from Tesco, or a plastic box store, whatever, and I just drilled a load of holes in it. I think they're 10mm holes, just drilled a load of holes in it, and when I scoop all of this stuff up, I sieve it through like so, and then I'm left with just the aggregate rock. Bad example, there was none in that scoop, but and then I just dump that into a separate container, and then I just do the whole board. A board breakdown takes about 30 minutes. It doesn't take long at all. Yes, it is messy, and I do have a hoover on hand to hoover up on the carpet, and then I hoover up the remaining few grains that have got stuck in the side here and messed around, and then that's it. So yes, it is a massive pain. but you know, the boards are unlike any other board out there. They're really unique, which a lot of people have said kind of sets the channel apart, which I certainly hope it does. Anyway, I hope the Mechanicum went really well in this game, but I also wish my opponent a good game as well. I think it will be a very, very cool game, and I'm really excited to play a game because I haven't had a game for such a long time. You know, I get a lot of satisfaction behind the camera filming games, but you can't beat that in the moment rash decision when you're rolling dice and your numbers aren't coming up, or you're hammering your way through an army, whatever. It's an amazing feeling, and I think, you know, that's what keeps me going at this game all the time. You know, if the rules change in the future, which I'm pretty certain they will do, not based on anything but just evolution of the game, I guess they will change, and we will have to change with it rather, and our game will change along with that as well. So, you know, what might be good this year might not be good next year in terms of list building, rules, combinations, Death Stars, unit composition, whatever. And that's what I love about it. It just keeps evolving and evolving, which is really, really cool. Anyway, I think I've talked for far too long. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. The photos will be available at the end of this video. So if you want some cool photos from this board, please stay tuned. Before I go, one of the other big questions I get when I do sort of a camera shot up here and you look down the board list, there looks like it's flat. There's so much lines of fire, you know, it's not much fun. But I promise you, when your models are here and you're stood at the foot of one of these rocks, you cannot see over that. You can't see that spart on the other side, or you can't see that fell blade the other side of the rock. And it's not until you get down eye level of the model you really appreciate these boards and the amount of cover there is, because there is a ton of cover. So yeah, I'll get a few more sort of closer to the board shots, but the only thing I would say to that is get an email into me, David at the 30k channel, if you want to come and have a game on one of these boards at the channel. All we need is a very well painted army to a reasonably high standard, you know, a base coat, and Agrax Earthshade is not going to cut it, unfortunately. You know, we need some reasonable skill in your painting, because we're trying to showcase great things. So well, great things, it sounds so dramatic, but yeah, drop me an email and we'll try and get you on as best as we can. We are booked up until the end of November 2020, but there's always slots in December, January, February, March onwards. So get an email into me and we'll get you on the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.